Have you ever wondered why we spend so much of our lives chasing certainty when the world we live in is so fundamentally built on change? Welcome to this space. This reflection isn't about ignoring fear or forcing ourselves to embrace things that feel threatening, but rather about taking a quiet, gentle look at uncertainty from an entirely different angle. It can sometimes feel like insecurity is a problem we desperately need to solve, a lingering barrier standing between us and lasting peace. But there is a philosophical idea, often associated with the thinker Alan Watts, suggesting that what we call insecurity might actually just be the natural condition of life itself. We are quite naturally drawn to guarantees. We want to know that the job will last, that the relationship will endure, that the choices we make today will guarantee a safe, predictable, and comfortable tomorrow. It makes perfect sense, of course, because knowing what comes next feels like safety. We build our routines, our daily schedules, and our intricate 5-year plans, hoping to construct a sturdy fortress against the vast unknown. We spend countless hours trying to organize the future in our minds, playing out different scenarios, trying to anticipate every possible outcome, so we won't be caught off guard. Yet despite our very best efforts, the walls of that fortress are often porous. Life tends to slip through the cracks, bringing unexpected shifts, sudden changes of heart, or unforeseen circumstances that no amount of planning could have predicted. Here is what uncertainty quietly reveals. When we look closely at our own experiences, we might notice that the harder we try to lock life firmly into place, the more anxious we become about losing that fragile control. The tension many of us experience day to day doesn't necessarily come from the change itself, but rather from our deep, almost instinctual resistance to it. We so deeply want life to be a static picture, a beautiful painting we can securely frame and hang on the wall, completely immune to time and decay. But life is much more like a river, constantly moving, shifting its banks and flowing in ways we simply cannot always predict or manage. When we try to grasp the water and hold it still in our hands, it inevitably slips through our fingers, often leaving us feeling empty, frustrated, and tired. It is a very human, very understandable experience to want to just stop the flow, to finally arrive at a stable point where everything is perfectly settled and nothing will ever go wrong again. This is the part many people overlook. That imagined destination of perfect certainty doesn't actually exist anywhere except in our thoughts, and the endless pursuit of it can sometimes exhaust us much more than the uncertainty itself. Think about the major areas of our lives where we seek this solid ground, like our careers, our personal decisions, or our closest relationships. In a career, we might continuously strive for a specific title, a certain income, or a recognized position, quietly thinking that once we reach that specific plateau, we will finally feel permanently secure. But even then, we often find that industries change, companies shift directions, and our own inner interests and passions organically evolve. The security we thought we purchased with our hard work turns out to be just as fluid as everything else. In relationships, we might ask for rigid promises of forever, hoping to permanently bind another person's feelings to a fixed, unchanging point in time. But human beings are living, breathing creatures, constantly absorbing new experiences and growing. To truly love someone is to engage with an unfolding story, not a completed, static manuscript trying to force absolute certainty onto a dynamic relationship can sometimes inadvertently stifle the very spontaneity, warmth, and genuine connection that made it so beautiful and nourishing in the first place. This is where insecurity changes meaning. It slowly stops being a warning sign that something is deeply wrong with us and starts to look much more like the simple, neutral reality of interacting with a world That is fundamentally alive and in motion, if we pause to think about the moments in life that feel the most vibrant, the most deeply meaningful, and the most awake. They are rarely the moments when everything is completely predictable and mapped out. It is often the vulnerability of not knowing that makes an experience feel so incredibly profound. The nervous excitement at the beginning of a new friendship. The tentative first steps into an unfamiliar city. The raw creative process of making art, or the courageous act of starting over. These are all saturated with a deep sense of insecurity. If we knew exactly how every movie would end before the opening credits finished, we would likely stop watching. If we knew exactly how every conversation would unfold, before we even spoke a word, we would probably stop listening. It is the openness, the blank page, the very absence of an ironclad guarantee that actually invites us to pay close, meaningful attention to our lives. Here is a shift in perspective. Absolute certainty, if we could somehow actually achieve it, might just numb our natural curiosity and leave us feeling entirely stagnant, as if we were just going through the motions of a life already lived. So much of our daily exhaustion seems to come from trying to build permanent, immovable structures on shifting sands. We constantly brace ourselves against the wind of change, tightening our muscles, trying to hold everything together through sheer force of will. But some experience a profound sense of relief when they realize they simply do not have to hold the entire world together. The world is going to move, spin, and transform regardless of how tightly we clench our fists or how much we worry in the middle of the night. There is a profound difference between hopelessly resisting the natural current of life and gently learning to float with it. Floating doesn't mean we don't care about our destination. And it certainly doesn't mean we surrender to apathy or give up on making thoughtful choices. It simply means we acknowledge the water. We recognize that we are part of a larger, moving system. And we stop demanding that the river behave like a solid road. This is what uncertainty gently teaches us when we slowly stop demanding that the future provide us with absolute guarantees. We suddenly find that we have so much more energy and presence available to actually engage with the present moment. This philosophical idea of the wisdom of insecurity is not a harsh demand to become reckless, and it is certainly not a suggestion to disregard our very real, very human needs for basic stability, shelter, and safety. It is completely human and necessary to want a warm home, reliable friends, and enough resources to live comfortably in society. The reflection here is much more about our internal psychological relationship with the great unknown. It is about gently noticing when our demand for emotional and psychological certainty becomes a self-imposed cage rather than a source of comfort. Many people notice that when they softly, gradually accept the inherently insecure, unpredictable nature of life, a strange and quiet kind of peace begins to emerge. It is a peace that does not depend on everything going exactly to plan, or everyone behaving exactly as we expect them to. Rather, it is a peace born from trusting our own innate human ability to meet the unknown when it arrives instead of trying to defensively figure it all out years beforehand. This is where the illusion of control fades. We slowly realize that we have always lived in an unpredictable world from the day we were born, and we have always managed to navigate it, step by step, breath by breath, adapting to the changes as they come. As we quietly observe our own minds and our own reactions to the world, we might start to see insecurity not as a personal failing, not as a flaw in our character, and certainly not as a weakness to be eradicated, but rather as a deep, fundamental openness to life's continuous unfolding. To be insecure in this broader philosophical sense is simply to be without a fixed, artificial anchor in a universe that is naturally and beautifully fluid. It means we are sensitive, we are awake, and we are actively participating in the great, unscripted reality of human existence. Returning to our earlier thought, perhaps true wisdom does not come from successfully eliminating every last trace of uncertainty from our days, for that is an impossible task that only brings frustration. Perhaps true wisdom comes from learning to live alongside it gracefully, letting the mystery of not knowing keep us curious, adaptable, and deeply present for the journey. We do not need to solve the vast mystery of what happens tomorrow in order to be fully, meaningfully here today. If this reflection resonated with you, feel free to like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you for being here.